Thank you. Please be seated. I'd like to welcome you all this morning to the service, and especially like to welcome those who might be joining us online. We gather today on the traditional territories of the Sanic people, and in particular the Sarslip First Nations. Give thanks for the journey of reconciliation that we're on with them, where we could learn how to live well together in the years to come. So, Haisipka, Haiskoel, Haishka CM, Helen, Nancy, and Kirsten for their leadership here today. The service today will flow as it is in the bulletin. The hymns will not be announced. And we will leave, as we've done a couple of times during Lent, under the rule of silence. I invite you to, when you feel comfortable to leave, it's just to get up and leave and maintain that rule of silence at least to the parking lot. This focus of today's service is on the relationship of Jesus to particular women in the gospel. The relationship which challenged him in many ways and which he himself learned from, but also how his presence with them transformed their lives, not only spiritually but physically in different ways in the gospel. Women and girls tend to be forgotten in our society, as we as Canadians have learned with the missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls. And the scriptures don't get away with that easy either, because the scriptures sometimes forget to mention and rule out women as the story goes on. So these are the stories of 4 women from their own particular experience in the world and their own particular relationship with Jesus. Someone once said, misogyny and violence against women and children is a crime against humanity. Let's pray together. Cross-carrying Jesus, as you stagger on your lonely journey, time slips, worlds reel. Forgive us that we turn away, embarrassed, uncaring, despairing. Help us to stay with you through the dark night, to watch and to wait, to know the depths of your anguish, and to realize that you carry us. Forgive even us. Love us. Forgive us that we get on with our work and thinking, that we gamble on knowing with precious things. Cross-carrying Jesus, nailed to the tree of life, forgive us and grant us your salvation. Amen.
Many folks have asked me, how do you do it, and why have you sacrificed so much to do this work? The answer comes easy. I look at my daughter and I find hope in that she is living in a world of struggle, of social and political movement. She and other 5-year-olds will grow up in a more just, more equitable world. She motivates me.
I am Jairus' daughter. Everyone calls me child. Suddenly, I was so tired, not hungry. It hurt. I lay on my bed between sleeping and waking, and I went a long way away, so I could barely hear my parents calling. When I heard people wailing and crying, I smelt bread, baking to feed them all, but I was only hungry to be touched. I was so lonely lying and leaving home, and it got darker. And then a hand took hold of mine, a warm and friendly hand. I heard someone say, "Get up, my child." So I sat up, blinking. It was bright daylight. Why was I in bed? Why was the house full of people? Why was my mother crying? The man holding my hand said, "Give her something to eat." And they brought me bread, warm from the oven. Now I was hungry. My hands were trembling. He helped me to break the bread. Flour on my lips, salt on my tongue, filling my belly. I ate every last crumb, and it tasted like life.
Where, after all, do universal human rights begin? In small places, close to home. So close and so small that they cannot be seen on any maps of the world. Such are the places where every man, woman, and child seeks equal justice, equal opportunity, equal dignity without discrimination. Unless these rights have meaning there, they have little meaning anywhere.
One announcement that I didn't make at the beginning was that one of the narrators today was my wife Marcia, who is sick at home. I'm really grateful and thankful that our daughter, Kirsten Horncastle McMenemy, can be here to take over that role.
I am a Canaanite woman. Call me what you want. I'm not going to argue this time. I argued with Jesus because my daughter was ill and I knew he could heal her. Don't ask me how I knew, I just did. I shouted, "Help me, sir." He said, "It's not right to take the children's bread and throw it to the dogs." Don't think I didn't care. How would you like to be called a dog, a bitch, as we are called daily? I knew that in his eyes, I was a human being. So I said, "Fair enough, but the dogs get to eat the crumbs." He smiled and gave me much more than a crumb of comfort under the table. He gave my daughter health, and he reminded me that I'm a human being, whole and a child of God, who can sit with others around the table and share the loaf.
Peace cannot exist without justice. Justice cannot exist without fairness. Fairness cannot exist without development. Development cannot exist without democracy. Democracy cannot exist without respect for the identity and worth of cultures and peoples.
Now, don't get me wrong, for everyone else does. I'm not a quiet wee mouse, and I've never been. With a name like Big Isa, I could hardly ever have been petite. I was always in the limelight. I always chased the boys before they chased me. And if there ever was a Kaylee or a karaoke night, I'd be there singing, "I did it my way," or "Who's sorry now?" at the drop of a hat. I used to be 320 pounds, though many of these weren't pounds at all, but clotted cream caramels, sherbet bonbons, and chocolate eclairs. I was 36 years old when the bleeding started. But of course, it was never called bleeding. It was called discharge, according to the doctor. Just another aspect of women's troubles. "Listen, doctor," I says, "the only trouble that we women have is men like you. I'm not discharging. And what do you think I am, a sewage pipe? I don't have women's troubles. I may be losing something like a pint of blood a week." Well, the doctor said there was nothing for it. So I tried other options: copper bangles, a rabbit's paw under my pillow, a bathing in salt water when there was a full moon. I went on a 7-day silent retreat. I paid 3 weeks' wages to some Italian gigolo for crystals who said they had healed some folks in Rome. And all that time, I was losing weight and losing hope. Big Isa became Isa, and then wee Isa. And then I heard that he was coming to our village. It was my last chance, and I knew it. I thought I might just squeeze through the crowd, but that was useless. They were tight packed round him like sardines. So where I got the strength from, I don't know, but I just got in there. I shoved, I pulled, I kicked an old man's shins, and I bit someone in the arm who tried to keep me back. And then I saw him, and I said, "God, this time, please." And I threw myself forward and just managed to touch the sleeve before some old man who smelt of fish game gave me such a shove that I fell on my backside. And that was enough. It worked. Though I was a quivering wreck when I realized that the whole procession had stopped and everybody was looking in my direction. He said that it was my faith that did it. But I've had faith before. In the doctors, in the crystals. It wasn't my faith, it was him.
A truly free society must not include a peace which oppresses us. We must learn on our own terms what peace and freedom mean together. There can be no peace if there is social injustice and suppression of human rights, because external and internal peace are inseparable. Peace is not just the absence of mass destruction, but a positive internal and external condition in which people are free so they can grow to their full potential. The sword of murder is not the balance of justice. Blood does not wipe out dishonor, nor violence indicate possession. As men have often forsaken the plow and the anvil at the summons of war, let women now leave all that may be left of home for a great and earnest day of council. Let them meet first as women to bewail and commemorate the dead. Let them solemnly take counsel with each other as to the means whereby the great human family can live in peace, each bearing after its own time the sacred impress, not of the Caesars, but of God.
I wasn't ill. Oh, there were rumors. I knew about them before, and I heard about them afterwards. I was supposed to have given syphilis to half the men in the village. I was rumored to be the cause of 2 women giving birth to deaf children. People thought my door was open day and night to every drunk or lesher looking for a good time. The phrase people would use was, "He must have been with Annie." If the apprentice was arriving late and bleary-eyed for work, one of the older men would say, "Were you with Annie last night?" If someone started scratching their heads or their groins, someone else would suggest, "Looks as if you've been with Annie." But none of them had ever been with me. My reputation developed because I had twins out of wedlock. I gave my virginity to a man who had said he'd marry me. 2 days later, he got drowned at sea. And because he came from a decent family, and because I loved him, I never told anyone that he was the father of my boys. I suppose if there had been just one child, it would have been easier. But because there were 2, the gossip had been a field day, saying that Samuel, the older by an hour, looked like John Jacobson, the timber merchant, while Matthew, the younger one, looked like Gary Mitchell, the undertaker. I had put up this for 10 years, and I had never retaliated. I had never given myself to another man, until one day, and I don't know why, I let myself be swept off my feet by a married man who said that his wife wouldn't understand him. I gave him my sympathy. I gave him my time. But I never thought that it would go further than friendship, and I had no idea that his wife was watching every move. She chose her time well, and she brought 8 or maybe 9 men with her who wanted to have their fantasies confirmed. They called me slut, whore, a filthy bitch. They dragged me by the hair through the streets into the village square. Old men prodded me with their sticks. Young men tramped on my fingers. Women spat. At 6 o'clock, they were going to stone me. At 10 to 6, he knelt down beside me, and whatever he said to them, they disappeared. And when he said to me, "I forgive you," I knew that I was healed, even though I had never been ill.
Today, women in many countries are taking part in various types of movement of protest, some of which are serious struggles for economic and social emancipation.